Sikha?
In the
There's a sikha about the difficulties in the Beis Yosef on the type of the miracle.
Every country in the whole entire world
Okay.
was against Israel except for the
It's about
Netherlands.
Hanukkah.
Except for the Netherlands.
Continuation of Hanukkah?
It's a different Hanukkah sikha. Yeah? Alright, Chevra, relax. Ready to go? Let's look inside here. Everyone wants to start with this page, which has a part blank on the beginning. Okay, we're going to start. Ofen anes tepach hashemen. This is a sikha, very powerful sikha from the Rabbi. It says the manner of the miracle of the Pach Hashem and how did it actually happen, and the kushios of the Beis Yosef, the difficulties that the Beis Yosef brings the Shulchan Aruch, trying to understand what the miracle was. Moshe, come join us. Yemei Chanukah. So he says the days of Chanukah nikvu lezecha nes the Pach Hashem, and they were fixed in order to remind us, or as a memorial of the miracle of the Pach Shemen. The Pach Shemen is the jar of oil that they found. As it says, quote in the Gemara, Lo matzu lepach echad shel shemen. They only found, when they came in after the Greeks contaminated all the oil, they only found one jar of oil. V'lo hayabo el ladlik yom echad. And they only had enough to light one day from that jar. Na'asa bo nes. There was a miracle that happened. V'dliku memenu shmona yamim. And they lit it for 8 days. Nes dome. A similar miracle, Matzanu Gam Odos Neros Hashabes Shel Sarah v'Rivkah. We find a very similar miracle when it came to the Shabbos candles of Sarah and Rivkah Imenu. Kedivri Chazal, the sages said on the pasuk, "V'yavia Yitzchak ha'oila Sarah imo." Right, so they said, we just had this in the pasuk not long ago. It says Yitzchak brought her to his tent, to the tent of Sarah, his mother.
Why did it say this?
But you could also read it. He brought her to the tent, and behold, it was Sarah, his mother.
What? We learned the whole sikha.
All right, you learned the sikha, right? But the idea is that there was a comparison between Sarah and Rivkah. Sheneros haShabbos, shehem adliku, right? That the Shabbos candles that Sarah had lit had a special quality to them that they were lit from Leil Shabbos ad Leil Shabbos. And so to Rivkah, why was it suddenly Sarah, his mother? Because Rivkah had the same quality of miracle that happened to her Shabbos candles when she lit them. They would last a whole week from Shabbos to Shabbos.
Light Shabbos candles?
What's that?
Why is it that you said we light Shabbos candles? To begin with?
Why do we light Shabbos candles?
Yeah, you said like
For Shalom Bayis. So it says Shem Hedliku. Right, dolek mileli Shabbos vad leili Shabbos. So they were lit from for a whole week. So in other words, that's what it is. It was Sarah, his mother, because his wife's candles had the same miracle in them. So what do we see? It's similar to the Chanukah. In other words, it was an enduring flame that didn't go out. Right? It was a miracle oil. Afal pichein, nonetheless, move on shebenes Chanukah yesh chiddush miyuchad. It's understood that Chanukah must have a special chiddush, a special novelty, legabe anesha benerosehen, over and above their miracle of Sarah and Rivkah. Shari nes Chanukah pal shikvu lezichro yom tov miyuchad, because the nes Chanukah made us create a special yom tov, 25th of Kislev. We don't find there's a day in the calendar for the miracle of Sarah and Rivkah's candles, right? So there must have been something unique that they made a holiday out of it.
What's Paul?
Affected.
Okay.
In general, you could say that it obviously wasn't the same old thing because Hashem already made a miracle of that type before. There was something new that happened here.
Did all this happen on the same dates, just different years? Hanukkah and like their weeks?
No, theirs was every Shabbos,
Wow.
every week.
Weeks to week?
Yeah, they lit it once a week, and it lasted the whole week. V'dochach lomer, it's very, very forced to say, Shamaylahi rak b'zeh shepach Hashem and dimei Chanukah. It's very forced to say that the quality, the special quality of the miracle of the Pach Shemen of Chanukah, Shalo hayabo ela hadlik yom echad, where it only had enough to light one day, etc. And they hadliku shmona yamim, and they lit it 8 days. Mash ein kein nero Sarah v'Rivkah dalku ba'ofen nisi rak shiva yamim. So one might want to say that the miracle was because there was an extra day in Chanukah. Their candles only lit for 7 days miraculously, whereas the miracle of Chanukah lit for 8 days miraculously.
Of natural order. That's a Kiddush.
That's a Chiddush, but the Rebbe says that's not such a big Chiddush. It's not a difference in the actual quality and the essence of the miracle. It's the same miracle, just 1 day longer. That's a Chiddush, but not so much. It's a elaba kamus. It's basically it's not a change in the quantity, but the quantity. Kamus, right? Meshech zman shadalku aneros, i.e., the duration of time that they live, and that's not such a qualitative difference. Going on the back of that page. Moshe, you running away?
No.
Don't run away.
Not yet.
Here, I have copies for you, by the way. You jumping? All right. Going on. Shnei biurim ba'ofen hanes kamus ve'echos. So the Rebbe goes on. There's a little title. 2 explanations of what this miracle was. Kamus, which means quantity, ve'echos, and quality. Base. Ba'ofen hanes depach hashemen. When it comes to the manner of the miracle of the jar of oil, matzinu b'chlalu shnei biurim. We find 2 different explanations. The Mefarshim were trying to explain what this miracle was. Aleph, hanes shekamus hashemen huchpol v'hushlash ba'ofen nisi, is that the amount of oil was doubled and tripled, etc., in a miraculous way. It was a miracle with the amount. Ad shayadai shemen l'chol shmona yamim. In other words, the miracle just continued to increase to the point that it multiplied to the amount of 8 days. That's one of the ways of looking at this miracle. That after they filled up the candles, the jar remained full like it was in the beginning. What does he mean, the jar? It means the jar they were pouring from. In other words, that's the miracle, is that they would pour the jar into all the cups, and it was still full right after they were done. So that was a miracle, that it doubled, it tripled, it quadrupled, etc. in the jar of oil. Osh b'chol yom, or another way of looking at the same concept, matzu neros maleim shemen, kebeis horos beis yosef. There's 2 ways of looking at it. Either the jar was miraculously full, or when they came back the next day, after the oil had burned down, they found that the oil was miraculously replaced in the cups without having to pour it again from the jar. It's the same concept, just either it multiplied in the jar or in the cups. But the idea is there was a multiplicity of oil. It was a miracle in the kamus, the amount, not the quality.
That's like the story of Elijah, the lady, or...
Exactly, we're going to get to that. That's going to be mentioned in the Sikha itself. So he says, the second way of looking at the miracle, that the miracle was in the quality of the oil, i.e., kamus hashemen sha'al pi teva haisa maspekes ladlakas nero shel yom echad bilvad. That really, when it comes to the amount of the oil, according to nature, that amount of oil would last only 1 day. But in reality, that same amount of oil wound up burning for 8 days. They only had 1 amount of oil. The oil did not increase, but the quality was the miracle, and the oil that would last one day wound up lasting 8 days.
It would burn down?
It would burn down. No, it would burn down. It would burn down, but it would burn down slowly.
Like an 8?
Yeah. Every day, only an eighth would burn.
How's that a Kiddush from Sarah and Rivkah?
Because that, we're not necessarily, we don't know exactly what was the deal with the Sarah and Rivkah one. We don't know how their miracle worked. Did it increase the oil? Did it burn down slowly? Mastam, it burned down slowly.
Yeah.
So you're right. That could be exactly what happened over there.
Yeah.
But we'll see. What we're saying right now is that there must be some kind of a Kiddush.
Yeah.
But it looks like that, but we'll see. So anyway, this is the kamus and echus, quantity and quality. In the brackets, kaperu shabeis Yosef, like the Beis Yosef says, shachalku es hashemen shebepach l'shmone chalakim, that they divided the oil in the original jar into 8 parts, and b'chol laila malos es habenor b'chelek echad. And every night they only filled up an eighth.
That would be like a bit weird that they knew a miracle would happen.
Maybe, but not. Maybe it wasn't even a
Maybe they're just gonna light it.
Yeah, exactly.
Keep it lit the whole day.
Exactly. Maybe it wasn't so much that they knew it was how long it was going to take them to bring new oil. So they figured we'll just light a little bit and maybe it'll last.
Allocated.
Yeah. That's one way of looking at it. Oh, kasvaros I'm not sure what that is. A Pri Chadash, or like the svaras of the Pri Chadash, should be Yom Harishon Malu as a manure b'chol Hashem and Shabbat. This, if you want to say, Mendy is more up your alley. That the first day they filled the whole thing. But only the miracle was that every day only an eighth went down, right? Maybe more reasonable, because why would they only think to pour an eighth in? Okay, but there's a svara for that. They knew it would take 8 days. Either way you look at it, the miracle was that an eighth of an oil lasted the whole time. Accordingly, we can say l'chora shabiru hanal, that this explanation we just gave, hachiluk b'mahus hanes, the neros Chanukah, lenes, the neros Sarah Rivkah, the difference between the essential miracle of the Chanukah neros to the neros of Sarah and Rivkah, toloi b'shnei biruim hanal. It depends on these two explanations we said before. Lefi bira base, according to the second explanation, muhus beis hanisim echadhu. This is what Baruch exactly what you were saying. According to the second explanation, the miracle of the Chanukah and menorah and Sarah and Rivkah was exactly the same. Hosafa echutit bekoach hadlika shel hashemen. It was an additional quality in the power of the burning of the oil. Shebishnei anisim baru aneros meshach zman aruch yoser me'afshari al piteva. Meaning, in both places, the candles burned longer than they could according to nature. Yeah? So he's saying that how do we explain the original problem that we had before? That it looks like Chanukah menorah brings no chiddush to Sarah and Rivkah's candles. It depends how you explain what the Chanukah menorah miracle was. If you explain that it was a miracle in the echus, the quality, then Taka, it looks exactly like theirs. Theirs went down, burned supernaturally long, right, and the Chanukah burned supernaturally long.
Right.
But we just opened up like a new channel. Yeah. There was a different mahus of the miracle, that it was an increase in the multiplicity of the oil, the kamus, the quantity, not the quality. So that will open up basically a vision. We can see that where Chanukah differed from theirs.
Which means there
was a chiddush to it.
I know, which is that the
oil replaced itself.
Okay.
It doubled, tripled, quadrupled.
So the oil just went up.
The oil was miraculously replacing itself, as opposed to being not stronger oil, like more quality oil. It was the same quality oil. It just was replaced, right? If there was more in the jar. So he says, "Hachiluk beineihem hu." The difference between them is one. The difference is that when it came to Chanukah, there was an increase in the power of the oil because it lasted one more day. Sorry, Menu's candles only lasted 7 days. This lasted 8, as we mentioned earlier. And two, the Chanukah haya b'chol yom neis b'fnei atzma. And Chanukah, every day was another miracle. B'chol yom adlikos menorah mechadash. Because in other words, every day they lit the menorah again. Masha'en kein nerosei and shel Sarah v'Rivkah. Not so in the candles of Sarah and Rivkah. Dalku rak shiva yamim v'b'retzifos. They lit it once, right? So there was like a one-time miracle basically, where they lit it once and there was a change in the oil one time, I guess you could say. Whereas in the Chanukah you could say that there was a new miracle every single day. So every day, why is there 8 days of the holiday? Because there was actually 8 miracles that happened. Right? This is according to the fact that we're saying that the Chanukah and Sarah's candles had the same miracle, which is a change in the echus, the quality, not the quantity. Right? And then if you want to say that still we have to find some chiddush, why was it different? Because Hashem basically is not going to make the same miracle twice. Even if you want to say the mitzvah was essentially the same, you could say there was still a slight difference. One lasted 7 and one lasted 8, which we already said was kind of weak. And 2, by Chanukah, the miracle happened again every day. Whereas by Sarah and Rivkah, it happened once in the beginning of the lighting.
Why is there 8 days if there's only 7 miracles? Because the first day is natural, obviously.
No, but the first day also, it only went down an 8th, according to this opinion, right? So this also answers that question, why there's 8 days. That's also a question, right? The first day, this is one of the questions asked by the Mefarshim. It should be 7 days of Chanukah because the miracle really started from the second day. This answers that question. If you look at the miracle that it was a change in the quality, they would have already seen that by day 1.
Because the oil didn't go down at all.
No, they went down an 8th.
It should have gone down more, you're saying?
The whole thing should have burned down. Should have been gone. That's what they put in. They put in normally. You put in oil, and the whole oil burns down overnight. And they have to fill it up again the next day.
Another miracle.
So for the last 8 days, and it only went down at 8, they're like, oh,
Another miracle of 8 days is so much stronger than the miracle of 7 days because 8 is above the.
There's no question that there's a quality of 8 over 7, but we're only gonna use that when we see that something which is from the level of 8 was present in this miracle. Right now, we don't see that yet. All we see is on the contrary. It's the exact same thing of Sarah and Rivkah, but the only difference is this one lasted 7, this one lasted 8. Meanwhile, we haven't seen some indication that there's something different than what happened over there. But you're right. Obviously, we're gonna. The Rebbe's bringing a big chiddush at the end that makes it be 8 as opposed to 7. So everyone follows. So in other words, that we're getting into some interesting twists and turns. What we're saying is there's 2 reasons. There's 2 ways of looking at the miracle: kamos and ekos. Do I have to translate that every time? You get it?
Yeah.
Quantity and quality, right? And we're saying even if you want to say that Sarah's, we're just saying was the mitzvah was quality, right? So even if you want to say that the miracle of Chanukah was also quality, so there's still a slight chiddush of Chanukah over Sarah and Rivkah because it lasted longer and it was every day a miracle. Masha'inkin lefibira aleph. But if we look at the first explanation, which is the Indian of quantity, Nes Chanukah shonim mahusa. The Chanukah miracle was absolutely different, and therefore it was a true chiddush. Shenivra ba'ofen nisi metziu shel shemen nosev al mashahaya. There was a creation of a miraculous oil, right? In addition to what there was before. Sarah didn't have that. She put a certain amount of oil and it just went slow, quality. But if we explain the oil, there was a jar that never ended. So it's mamish completely different from Sarah and Rivkah, and therefore it makes sense. We make a miracle, a holiday out of it. We don't find that in the miracle of Sarah and Rivkah.
Where's this Sarah and Rivkah miracle from? Like, what's this?
The Torah. He brought the pasuk.
It's
He
the
said he
pasuk.
brought her to his tent,
Oh.
the tent of Sarah, his mother.
Yeah.
Right? So that you can read it like this. He brought her to the tent, period,
Uh-huh.
and behold, it was Sarah, his mother.
Whole other thing.
How does that do with candles and lighting?
Because what made it his wife suddenly be his mother, right?
Candles?
Because he said just like in his mother's tent there was 3 miracles. The dough stayed, the bread stayed warm from Shabbos to Shabbos.
Oh, okay.
The cloud was like it was constantly, the Shekhinah was constantly surrounding it, and the candle lasted mileil Shabbos ad leil Shabbos. So since Rivkah had the same miracle, he said, "Behold, it's like my mother Sarah."
Okay,
So it's a medrash, but Rashi brings it in pairs of the Rashi and Chumash. Okay, good to know.
Yes.
Aval gam lefi bir zeh, he says, however, so now we found it. We found the chiddush of Chanukah, right? It was not a change in eichus, but in kamus, not in quality, but in quality. Not in quality, but in quantity.
Quantity.
Not in quality, but in quantity.
Yeah.
Right? So then it's different from Sarah and Rivkah.
Okay.
Where's your copy? You got one for him? Here you go. Alright. Here you go. Kuf Chaf Vav. Right there you go. Over here. Aval gam lefi bir zeh, but even according to this explanation, ein chiddush b'neder Chanukah. Sorry, it doesn't work because of what the El said earlier. In other words, this is definitely a chiddush compared to Sarah and Rivkah, but it's not really a chiddush regarding the miracle of Chanukah in general. Why? Ki gam nes kazeh hayakavar, because there was already a miracle like this also. Mefurish b'torah sheb'ksav nevim, which is clearly stated in the written Torah, Malachim base over there. And he says, Hanes ba'asoch shemen al yedei Elisha. Right? There was the miracle of Elisha's story, right? That there was a widow and her son, and the creditors were coming to take their money. They didn't have anything. She went to the prophet Elisha, and he said, gather all your kalim, all your jars, and he said, start pouring oil in them. And the oil didn't go out until she filled all the jars. There was only a little bit of oil. It was mamash, exactly the same model of what we're talking about here, right? There was an increase in quantity of oil, and it's openly written, such a miracle in the written Torah. So what do we hear from here? If we want to explain the miracle of Chanukah like that, there's no chiddush in it whatsoever. It's exactly the same as the miracle of Elisha. So now we're stuck. We have a little bit of a chiddush if we look at it as a quality, but there's basically no chiddush if you look at it as quantity.
Maybe Elisha came after.
He did not, though.
Yeah, solves that.
Right?
Yeah.
So going on Gimel. Here's Zohar. Shnei habiruim hanal einam mechavarim. These two explanations, either of them, are not so crystal clear. In other words, the two that we said, quantity or quality, we're going to go revisit them, and we're going to see that neither of them are very good explanations to what the miracle of Chanukah was. Why? If we want to say that it was an increase in the amount of oil, right? You do Ashela. There's a known question. It's brought in Meforshim, Kli Chemda, etc. Ein hadliku as aneres menorah v'shemen shel neis. How did they light the candle, the menorah, with what's called shemen shel neis, miraculous oil? Where you see that it's permitted to light a menorah with miraculous oil. It says in the Torah clearly it has to be olive oil to light the menorah. And miraculous oil is not olive oil. It's miraculous. It doesn't come from an olive.
Where's it come from?
It comes from nowhere. It's like abracadabra, right? Olive oil is what you extract from an olive, right? Miraculous oil is not extracted from an olive, so it's not kosher to bring miraculous oil in the menorah. It's brought in the Meforshim. They asked this question.
Wow.
So it's got to be only birthday.
Well, hold on. He said both of the explanations are not very good. Right now we're knocking off the one, right? And we'll see about the other one. We'll see if we can get away with that one.
Okay.
He says muchrachim leishev shemash kasu shemen zayis. So the only way to get out of it, if you want to force this one in, is that you're forced to answer that it writes shemen zayis ein hakavana l'shemen sheba mezayis mamish. It doesn't mean it's really oil that literally comes from an olive. Kim shemen kazeh shetachuna shelo hem shel shemen zayis. But rather, it's a type of oil which its makeup is exactly like olive oil. That's not such a nice answer, and it doesn't sound good. It's a cheap way of getting out of this, basically, because it says shemen zayis, and you'd have to reinterpret the phrase of the Torah to say it doesn't really mean what it says. It means some kind of shemen which just looks exactly, smells, tastes, feels like shemen zayis, but it's not really shemen zayis, right? Okay, so then what about the other one? What about the biur shaneisah be'echus hashemen? If we want to say there was a problem, the miracle was that the quality of the oil was changed. It was stronger oil that it only burned down an eighth. That only an eighth burned down every day. Gam kasha. This also is not so clear, so smooth. Why? Because when it comes to the menorah, the law is ten la midasa shteto lekes me'erev ad boker. You have to give a certain midah that it should be lit from evening until morning, as we're learning in the Gemara. V'shir chachamim chatzilok. And the Chachamim said, how much is that? A half balok. Right? So that's the actual midah that they established for the lighting of the menorah. Notice about why, who can remember from our class why they chose that midah?
Because of the famous days.
Awesome. Because the longest nights, which is actually right around now, what's called Tkufas Tevas, the period of Tevas, it has to light from evening until morning. So the longest night is what they measured it from. So they'd have one measure the whole year long, but it would be enough to go through the longest nights. So certainly it would be enough to go through the shortest nights.
What's the longest night?
Like around now, the winter, right? What's called Tkufas Tevas. Yeah.
Why does a chetzi look?
The period of Tevas. What's that?
Like, to reference points, like,
Yeah, exactly. And you use that reference going forward.
Why does Hetzilu give us a problem here?
He's going to explain. It doesn't give, no, he's just telling, that's the midah, right? Now, no sabal Indian kli sharis tzrich lios maleh, despite over and above the Indian, that holy vessels have to be full.
Okay.
Right? Kamuvam b'hadin that kli sharis ein makachin ele malein. You're not able to sanctify a kli. What does it mean to sanctify a kli? It means to take it from the smith's store where they made a beautiful golden vessel, and you want to now use it in the Beis Hamikdash. How does it become holy, sanctified with the kedusha of the Beis Hamikdash? You use it once in a holy act. But if you use it and you don't fill it to the top, it doesn't get the kedusha. So despite the fact that there's a concept of wholeness when it comes to holy vessels,
The menorah they used was like a silver menorah or something, like a makeshift menorah.
either way, it has to be full, right?
Okay.
So Al Pi Hanal Nimtze comes out from the second day and on, Lo Kaimu Es Hatein Lamidasa. They did not fulfill the mandate of put in its measure, right? Haner's Lo Aymalei Mashir Shalim Tzrich. The second night on, they were chaser. They were not whole, filled with their proper midah. You understand?
Oh, they have to be full.
Yeah, there's an Indian 10 lamidasa. You have to give it its measure, and the measure is a chetzi log, and you're not allowed to use implements in the mikdash that are not full. So if it went down an eighth, the second night, the third night, the fourth night, etc., it was no longer full. They were doing the mitzvah inappropriately, improperly. So there's a big problem with saying that there was a miracle in the eichus, in the quality as well, because if they changed the quality, that means the second night and on, they were not lighting the menorah full.
But how could they even fill that Hetzilu is not full?
Chetzilog is dafka full.
Oh, it's full.
Yeah, that's the amount that they're supposed to put in all the nights of the year.
And it didn't go lower than that, the whole night day.
So the problem is now we have an issue with both of these. One, it was miraculous oil, which is not kosher. Two, it was not full, not kosher. So either of these ways of looking at the menorah, like either of those two miracles that happened before in history, they don't really work to explain the Chanukah candles like that. L'idach gisa, if you look at it alternatively on the other side, Al pizeh nimtze shebechol hayamim. It comes out that all the days, milvad yom hashmini, except for the 8th day, lo yasa midasa shtieh dolekes me'erev ad boker, el biyom harishon shmone pamim kacha, biyom hasheni shiva v'kachala. So he says, on the other hand, according to this, it comes out that in all the days, except for the 8th day, lo haisa midasa shtieh dolekes me'erev ad boker. They didn't put in. See, okay, so he's bringing a second problem with this, which is even worse than the first one. Because one could argue that when does it need to be full, right? Only when you're going to mekadesh it, when you're going to use it for the first time and sanctify it. And that is the din. But maybe you can get away with not having it full once it's already been mekadesh. But here's a much more bigger problem. Everyone agrees you have to put in the amount that would enable it to burn from evening to morning. That's what they chose for the longest night. It has to have just the amount to burn from one night, evening to morning. So it turns out that besides the 8th night, every other night was puzzle. Because the 8th night, which only had 1/8 of oil in it, that's the amount of this unique special type of oil to burn from evening to morning. But the first night, the second night, the third night, it had way more oil. It could have burned for 8 days. They put the amount of 8 days worth of burning in on the first night. 7 days worth of burning in on the second night. That's puzzle. You can't have more than 1 day's amount of oil in there to burn. You see what he's saying there? You missed this part? It goes like this. If it was really a miraculous quality of the oil, that means one regular jar could burn for 8 days, right? So on the 8th day, when there was only an 1/8 left, then that was the proper amount. That was the proper amount to put into it because it could burn for 1 day. You're only allowed to have enough oil in there to burn for 1 day. So the 8th day, since it was special oil, they had the amount to burn for 1 day. But the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th day, they had too much oil in there. They overfilled it.
But I thought we were saying that each day that the oil increased.
Increased?
Yeah.
No, we're on a different. There's two ways of looking at this miracle, right? Quality, which means it increased.
Yeah.
Quality, which means it decreased slower.
Quantity.
Quality means it decreased slower.
Burnt better.
It burnt better longer.
So how much?
So that's the part of this miracle we've been criticizing for the last few minutes, is that it was a quality miracle, which meant that the oil burned slower, which means that, so we had two problems with it. One, day 2, 3, and 4, it was chasser, it was lacking its wholeness, right? Because it went down an eighth, down an eighth, down an eighth, so it wasn't full except for the first day.
Yeah.
That's one issue. And even if you want to get away with that one, there's another problem. You can't put more oil than is allowed either. So only on the 8th day did they actually have enough oil to burn one day. But the 7th day, 6th day, 5th day, they had too much oil in there. So either way you look at it, this miracle was puzzle. It doesn't. You can't say that was the miracle of Chanukah, because they would have been lighting the menorah wrong. All right, we'll have to hold here, but we'll solve the riddle tomorrow. It's a nice little sikha, eh? You wanna give me the copies back? I guess I'll stack them up here.
Problem with the quantity.
Wait.
When you have one and you divide it into 8, so the 8th day is the right amount. But why do we dismiss the first, second, third, fourth,
The what?
That's quantity.
The quantity, because it's not olive oil; it's miracle oil.
What's it like? Benefit be miraculous.
It had to be olive oil from an olive. This is oil not from an olive.
What's the problem?
But it's the same as olive oil, just not more.
Oh. It's like we don't know. It's just miracle.
It just came out of nowhere.
Right. Well, it can't be.